What tight end just reset the free agency market? Which NFC South running back might be due for a huge bounce back in 2020? And what former non-wide receiver one might have cemented his status as one going forward? Plus, 2019 FFPC 1250 number 12 Dynasty winners Dan and Brian Jasiak hop aboard to talk aging Dynasty assets, the value of trading rookie picks, and much, much more. We've got a great show for you. Dave Gerzak is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Hey, everybody, if you got what it takes, because I'm KRS and I'm on the mic.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. It's the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for football analysis from the best fantasy players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Dave Gerzak.
With the master rhymer, that's the lead behind the video rapper. You know the truck driver, tapper.
Hey, thanks a lot, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics and Gerzak addicts. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the patron saint of fantasy football, the Dizzle, Dave Gerzak. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to discuss the new normal with the Titans backfield, how the Packers move on from a consistent pass catcher, and Dan and Brian Jasiak will speak with us on how they earned the 1250 FFPC number 12 Dynasty title in 2019. Shout out to the chat room right now. If you all have any questions, post them right in there. If you want to connect with us on Twitter, you can do so at HSFFO or at Eric Balkman, at David Gerzak. Dan Jasiak is on Twitter at FootballPPR. Brian is on Twitter at BJCAC11. Facebook.com/HSFFO is where you can reach us on our Facebook page. If you want to chime in and talk with us, give us a call, 347-426-3682. That's 347-GAME-OVA. You can also email us at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, now is the time to send them. We'll try to get to all the questions, all the tweets, all the emails throughout the show tonight. Our producer and mutual friend, Rob, our audio engineer, Bryce, and my best friend, obviously, will help us out on that tonight. Dave, how we doing? We doing good?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, Balky. How are you doing?
We're roughly, a month and a half out from the NFL draft. I was listening to a well-listened to, a well-trafficked, a well-downloaded podcast, and there was a hot take on there of how CeeDee Lamb should be the number one wide receiver this year and not Jerry Jeudy, which is very interesting, too. Makes me feel better about not having the 101.
Yeah, so I think it's a pretty deep draft. I can't give you a ranking on those two guys. I really haven't just studied them enough yet. I don't know if I might have somebody else high, just as high as them.
Really?
Yeah.
When you say someone else, is there a on the top tier for you? Is there three receivers, or is there more than three?
I don't even know at this point.
You don't know? Okay, that's fine.
There's this been coronavirus thing going on that I've been kind of paying a little bit of attention to.
I've heard, yes.
Haven't been really dialing in the Dynasty rankings all week long.
Well, we're going to give you a free pass on that tonight, and hopefully our guests, Dan and Brian Jasiak, when they come on, they have some
I hope they do.
Some words of wisdom to spill on that. Actually, we're going to talk to them about that because in the majority of their leagues, they don't have a lot of top picks. They were very successful last year, and I think traded those picks for players. But we'll still get their thoughts on that as well. Hey, I want to remind everybody, if you are looking for something to do this weekend, remember that Best Ball Slim Leagues, Dynasty Orphans, Dynasty Startups, and, of course, normal best balls all open at myffpc.com. We have Dynasty Startups launching, I believe, tomorrow and Sunday, so you can jump in on that at the $77, $250, and $500 levels. And then the main event early bird is live. You want to save on your main event team? Do so right now. This is, again, we always talk about this. This is the best deal we're going to have all year for your first team. You get $100 off. You can save on that. And make sure you're entered in the Pros vs. Joes drawing, which will be coming up later on in May, and see if you can compete against the best of the best, the creme de la creme, as the kids say. And we will broadcast all those episodes live right here on the HSFF Hour coming up at the end of July, and I believe in early August as well, if I'm not mistaken. Let's get into it. I want to thank Rob and Bryce for tonight's rundown, as well as Football Guys in Roto World. Adam Schefter tweeted out today, Dave, that the Tennessee Titans have now released Delanie Walker. This is a $6.4 million savings against the salary cap that Tennessee will enjoy. Walker played pretty well into his 30s, but obviously the last few years, injuries and age have been catching up to him. He played one game in 2018. He played 7 games in 2019, and obviously Jonnu Smith showed that he's probably a capable player to step in and be that lead tight end for the Titans. Dave, as we look at FFPC best ball drafts over the last 2 weeks, you look at, we're not going to talk about Delanie Walker because I think the book is sort of out on him.
Yeah, Football Guys actually took him out of their top 12 for tight ends finally.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He was still in the top 12 for the ranking?
That's a joke, man. But
oh, okay, all right. I didn't know. Well, you never know.
They've been high on him for a year. They've been living off the Delanie Walker buck for a decade. So.
Which,
it's worked.
We joke about that, but quite frankly, if you did draft him as a top 12 tight end for the majority of his career, you were reaping the benefits.
That's right.
Jonnu Smith, FFPC players are taking over the last 2 weeks in best balls as tight end 15 at the end of the 9th round. This is right before Ian Thomas and O.J. Howard, and it is right after Mike Gesicki and T.J. Hawkinson. Seems about right. I don't think I want to count on Jonnu Smith as my starting tight end, Dave, but if I did wait on tight end, Jonnu Smith as my number 2, you could do a lot worse than that.
Yeah, he kind of seems like kind of about right. 15th, right in the middle of the NFL teams overall.
Right. Yeah.
And he's got it. He's the starter. He's going to get a lot of targets. Wide receivers are definitely improving in Tennessee, but he'll still get his lion's share. And if Tannehill's back, he's a good quarterback.
Or if Tom Brady's there.
Yeah, and there's always that chance.
Who knows? There's that possibility as well. And here's the other thing to keep in mind. Obviously we don't know, and we'll get into the tight end I want to talk about in a second, but we don't know what the draft is going to hold if the Tennessee Titans are going to draft the tight end. But one of the things to keep in mind, tight ends usually have a slow learning curve, and it's not a great class for tight ends. So I guess that's 2 things to keep in mind. So even if Tennessee does draft one, they're not a threat to Jonnu Smith this year, and there's not a lot out there on the free agent wire, especially given that Greg Olsen was signed by the Seattle Seahawks a couple weeks ago. And we just found out today, this is the next point I want to bring up, Ian Rappaport from the NFL Network reporting that the Chargers have placed the franchise tag on their tight end, Hunter Henry. Woo-hoo. This was speculated and now confirmed today by the Los Angeles Chargers. Over his career, Hunter Henry has only played in 41 of 64 regular season games. However, he is averaging 8.9 yards per target over the course of his career, and that makes him one of the better tight ends in the league thus far. Now, we don't know what the Chargers are going to do with tight end. It sounds like they've washed their hands of Phillip Rivers. It could be Tyrod Taylor. It could be a rookie quarterback. But, Dave, when you think about rookie quarterbacks and you think about the Chargers, I got to believe that if that is the case, Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry are going to be pretty busy catching passes this year.
Yeah, from somebody. I like Henry a lot. I think he's a really big talent. If he'd been healthy his whole career, I think people would be talking about him as the next Gronk type of thing. Maybe he doesn't have the same game as Gronk, but I think he has that potential upside if he gets targeted enough. I have no idea what they're going to do at quarterback then.
He stays healthy, too. Obviously, that's a big thing.
He's got to stay healthy, yeah. I feel some of his injuries were fluky, though. I don't know what they all are offhand.
Well, he had the ACL, which he came back from last season. He tore his ACL in training camp, came back and played towards the end of the year for the Chargers, trying to get them back into the playoffs. But you look at I guess this is my point I want to make with Hunter Henry. As far as if your team, and maybe not necessarily in a fantasy sense I'm going to speak here, but if your team is looking for a tight end, it's drying up. Greg Olsen went to the Seahawks. The Chargers will have Hunter Henry. It's going to be kind of Austin Hooper or bust because you're looking at the next best available tight end out there as Eric Ebron. So as far from a fantasy standpoint, you kind of know what you're doing with tight ends here right now if you're drafting here in mid-March. Outside of Austin Hooper, you know where everybody's going to be, and you know their role because it's not going to largely change based on free agency or their draft.
Ebron's not a bad pickup for some NFL team.
You know who I like him for?
Who?
The Green Bay Football Packers. I think, and what we're going to talk, actually, you know what? Let's save the Packers talk because we got some Jimmy Graham stuff coming up. But I'm going to talk about the Packers tight end situation shortly. All right, get back to the Titans here. They also, according to Adam Schefter on Twitter, have released Dion Lewis. Running back Dion Lewis is now a free agent. That is a $4 million in cap savings and leaves behind just over $1 million in dead money. Now,
That's a terrible contract in the first place. They never should have signed him, and he sucked the whole time he was there.
Now, when they signed him, he was coming off the big season from New England, right?
Yeah, it was like 4 years and $20 million,
yes.
I think it was.
Yeah,
we were talking about that. It's like, why are you signing Dion Lewis to this huge contract, and he's just a bit player, and even he was bad at being a bit player there.
Well, Derrick Henry kind of took over. All right, so...
He was highly drafted, but yeah.
Yeah, well, he's a pedigree guy. But... Okay, so not necessarily for Dion Lewis it should be the conversation here, Dave. What I want to talk about is Derrick Henry because I think this move kind of solidifies that the Titans are going all in on Derrick Henry. So if for anybody who was drafting Derrick Henry early, and FFPC drafters over the last 2 weeks have been taking him as the sixth running back off the board at the 109, I think that you're solidified in that now because you kind of know it is going to be the Derrick Henry show, and if they bring somebody in, it's going to be somebody who's not familiar to the offense or a rookie.
Yeah, probably.
And so if you take Derrick Henry at the end of the first round, again, right after Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara, but right before Joe Mixon and Aaron Jones, I don't think it's weird. I don't think I would do that, but I don't have a problem with anybody doing that. Does that make sense?
Sure, I can see you not doing that.
Well, no, I mean, but if somebody said, "Oh yeah, Dave, you got to take Derrick Henry at the 109," oh, I don't really want to do that. Well, I did. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I would have no problem doing that.
So you like Derrick Henry at that
sure,
spot? Okay.
Fine.
I worried about his. I guess when he has that type of volume, you can't really be too concerned with his pass catching capabilities.
Well, I mean, if you lose to put that in quotes. But if you cut Dion Lewis, now granted they'll sign someone possibly, but they might use Henry more in the passing game, so you do have some upside there.
Right. Yeah. No, you're right. And so, okay, let's get. Yeah, this is perfect. Am I segueing myself? Yes, I am. This is great. God, Rob is a brilliant guy when he puts together this rundown.
Such a good show so far. You're really doing well.
Thank you. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport also reports that the Titans plan to bring back Derrick Henry at, quote, a big number, Dave. Now, it's what we don't know is if Ian Rappaport's reporting this or if he's just speculating based on the Dion Lewis transaction, given that he's a free agent right now. But if you look at the other free agent running backs so far that are out there in the NFL, career touches, Melvin Gordon, 1,900. Lamar Miller, 1,900. Carlos Hyde, almost 1,800. Derrick Henry, 1,400. Excuse me, that's combined collegiate and NFL. So as much as we say Derrick Henry's been ridden pretty hard by the Titans over the last few years, as far as free agents go, this is not a huge number for him. And I always say you hate to pay players for past performances, but in this case, I think if the Titans are paying him, he does have probably 2 or 3 really good years in front of him.
I mean, he could even have 4 or 5. I mean, I would see no problem signing him to a 5-year deal. He's still on the young side of the prime of his career, even as a running back, because he came in young. I thought he was 20-ish, maybe.
Yeah, he was very young
when he came out. He's a huge dude. I mean, you look at players like Ron Dane, they got knocked out early, but he delivers more punishment than he takes. Those guys do tend to break down earlier, but Henry just seems like a little bit different animal. He's like a big Frank Gore, and that's a huge, it's a huge thing to say. Because Gore's been so steady ever since he came out of college and got past those ACL injuries.
Right.
But I feel like Henry's like a little bit. I know I'm jinxing myself. I feel like he's a little bit bulletproof injury wise. I mean, as far as in the last 2 years, I don't see things going on with him.
He hasn't really had any soft tissue injuries. You know what I mean? And like you can only be bulletproof to a certain extent. But you're right. I mean, this is a guy that has not gone down. He's been, what does Farrell always say? KFFC commish. Best ability is availability, and Derrick Henry's definitely been available. And you bring up the Ron Dane comparison, and I think, to my point, like one of the things that separates these two guys is Dane had a ton of collegiate touches. Derrick Henry was running with all these other, 5-star guys at Alabama.
That's a great point.
He didn't have the same kind of mileage on at that point. And then you bring up too. Now that Lewis is gone, don't just assume that they're going to bring somebody in there to be a pass catcher. Maybe Derrick Henry is more of a pass catcher this year. Another thing to keep in mind, Jack Conklin, their right tackle, is a free agent. He is expected to leave, so that Titans line will take a hit. But remember, that Titans line was already one of the best in the NFL, too. So even though they may lose Conklin there, they still should be elite in that regard. One other thing I want to get to before Dan and Brian Jasiak come up here.
I'll make this quick.
Oh, we will make it very quick. Packers officially, this was expected, Packers officially released Jimmy Graham. This will save the Packers $8 million in cap space as Jimmy Graham was headed into the final year of his deal as he is entering his age 34 season, Dave, in an offense where he was essentially the number 2 option with Aaron Rodgers throwing to him. He caught 34 balls for 447 yards and 3 touchdowns. I don't want to bring this up and make a Jimmy Graham point. He's done. Would you agree? No reason to
done with the Packers, but maybe not in the NFL.
But as far as fantasy, he's just a guy at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Much, yeah.
So here's what I want to bring up. Jay Sternberger, who was the Packers' 3rd-round pick out of out of Texas Tech last year, a guy I really believe in, a guy I think is he won't be a league winner this year, but he's definitely being undervalued by FFPC players right now, going as the tight end 28 at the 1507. Here's my hot take of the night. He's going to be the Packers' starting tight end week 1. I think they believe a lot in him. I think he is going to be a potential difference maker, ripping stuff down the seam. I think Aaron Rodgers targets him a lot, and I will have him at, any best balls I do, Jay Sternberger will definitely be on my team.
All right. I mean, if they cut the guy that was in front of him, I don't know who else.
It was Graham.
Possibly. Yeah, I mean, who else could? I mean, how is it a hot take when they cut the guy in front of him and he's the only one left?
Well, they still have Robert Tonyan there, who a lot of people will say, Bobby Tonyan, Robert Tonyan. Okay, I get it. They could also draft somebody.
To be honest with you, I didn't even know who that was. I still don't know.
You know what's so funny about that?
I don't care 'cause he sucks.
He was the guy I thought was going to be so great last year, and then he dealt with a core injury basically all season and never. But I think that's a good 1-2 punch. I love Sternberger this year. I think he's going to be very good.
Good. He is cheap. That's a really inexpensive price.
Yeah, super. And especially when you consider that he could be your tight end 3 or potentially even tight end 4 in an FFPC best ball.
Keep in mind though that the number you just gave is dated now because
this is over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, the news about Jimmy Graham came out today.
But this was widely expected. This was not a shocking move.
It wasn't announced.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, I think you could
As
still.
am I.
Okay.
We're both saying.
You make a good point. I think that Sternberger, and I think you would agree, is a tremendous value right now. Let's bring in tonight's guest, ladies and gentlemen. They have been playing fantasy football, high-stakes fantasy football, for more than a decade. Since 2014, they've been exclusively playing with the FFPC and Dynasty and high-stakes leagues in a variety of formats. Brian does a great job of regulating Dan's homerism, which has been key to their success. But they both agree it's never too early to take the Patriots defense. Please welcome in the 2019 FFPC 1250 number 12 Dynasty champions in the FFPC, Dan and Brian Jasiak. Guys, welcome into the show.
Hey, what's up, fellas? Thanks for having us. Yeah, it's Brian here. Props to you guys for getting our last name right. We've been listening in to the show, and you guys have nailed it every time. So that's a hard feat.
Well, listen, thank you so much. I can't play fantasy football. I can barely hold together a podcast, but I can pronunciate a name. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Guys, let's talk about, before we get into the fantasy football portion of the show, tell us what you do for a living. Dan, I'm going to let you go first here, and then Brian, go ahead.
Oh man, I basically just make dynasty trades on FFPC. That's my go-to.
That is true. He's the true year-round GM, as I call it. So while I'm out in the real world making money, he's just hitting the wire and just killing it, doing research. No, but honestly,
Trader Danny.
Yeah, Trader Danny is what we call him. I'm a program manager at a tech company in Boston. It's a cool company. I've been coaching golf and hockey at my former high school on the side, so they let me do that, and just became a dad, proud father of an 8-week-old named Christopher Boy. So he's going to be what's this 2040 draft, NFL draft he'll be in. So no pressure
yep.
to him. But
yes, sir.
Raise him right, start him young.
Congratulations. So, that is great.
Yeah, that's
Appreciate
awesome,
it.
man. Congratulations. Good to hear on that. Certainly, procreation is always good, funneling the next generation of high-stakes fantasy football players, Dave.
Hey, I appreciate you giving me a break right now. I don't know, Friday night, 10 o'clock, I should probably be with him and the wife. But, hey, this is a nice little escape. So, hey, good on you guys.
That's right. Thank you so much, and thanks for joining us. Dave,
Are you sleeping through the night yet? I know your son isn't yet.
I mean, I'm doing what I can. My wife's an absolute champ, so I'm just trying to relieve her whenever I can. I get the late shift. I get the night shift, so I'm up till 3, 4 in the morning, but that's fine. It gives me more time to watch film, so I'm good.
Yeah. As long as you're not breastfeeding and it's only her, I think we're all good.
Exactly. We're good. We got a system, man. We got a system. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good, man. Hey, Dan, how did you and Brian get the idea to team up and play high stakes fantasy together?
Oh man, well, it was so many years of just beating up on each other in friends and family leagues. We figured why not team up? Why not? Tired of taking each other's money.
I mean, it makes sense. That if you can win more money together than playing against each other, I'm totally on board with that. I haven't wowed anybody enough to share teams
you haven't got any partnership offers?
I haven't got
no. Where's the offers?
Well, I get them and then I play with them for a year and then they're like, yeah, I'm moving on.
Hard pass.
Hard pass indeed. That should be all my fantasy team names is hard pass. Listen,
and we also
Brian,
like a lot of the
guys,
same players, so that's a little challenging. We're going for the same guys, and then we're like, come on, that's my guy. No, that's your guy. So it's that whole deal.
Yeah, we talk about this thing. We talk about this 24/7 football. In front of the golf course, we're always shooting the shit talking football. So might as well team up and no free ads. But we started doing real time fantasy sports. But don't worry, we like you guys way more. We did that early on, and once we joined FFPC, the user experience, everything was way better. And I actually started a 12-team Dynasty league with friends and family, just mid-stakes. It was a couple $100 entry. This is back in 2012. This is the first time we ever did Dynasty together, competing against each other, right? But it was all manual, Excel-based, did it over Yahoo, whatever, and that was our first introduction to the world of Dynasty. And it was actually funny, just prepping for this. I was looking back at those old Excel spreadsheets back in 2012. I went 3-10 and then 4-9 in 2013. But my next 3 seasons, I was great. But I was looking at my draft, and this, again, first Dynasty league I've ever done. I got Isaiah Peed and Steven Jackson in the first 3 rounds. This is 2012, so I'm thinking,
nice.
Great, I get the Rams bell cow back and their new rookie, shiny toy, Isaiah Peed. And I think Isaiah Peed, come on, you guys remember him, right? Nothing.
Oh, yeah,
University.
we remember.
He was the worst.
Is that right?
It might be Cincinnati.
Awful pick. So yeah, it's kind of funny. Like looking back, and we learned a lot doing that. We learned a lot, right? And then this is going to flow into a lot of questions later. But after my last place finish, we did a lottery system for the bottom 4 picks. So I was supposed to get the first overall pick the following year. It was Le'Veon Bell's draft class in 2013, and I ended up getting the second pick. And who was there after Le'Veon Bell? None other than Monty Ball, Giovanni Bernard, Tavon Austin, with Eddie Lacy too. But none of those were exciting. Ended up going with Monty Ball, so I was in the gutter for another year. So
I think I influenced that one.
Yeah, end of the day, man. We learned a lot about Dynasty. I think that's helped our success. Now with you guys and doing FFPC over the years is. Yeah, as you'll find, we don't overvalue, our those draft picks, right? You got to do a lot of work mid-season. You got to do, you got to be on the waiver wire. You get lucky too, right? I was looking at my drafts in the 3rd and 4th season. I ended up getting Odell Beckham in the 2nd round and David Johnson with 12th overall pick in the 4th year. So you get guys like that. Michael Thomas, I think, is a good example of that in the 2016 draft. I think we ended up getting Michael Thomas. As maybe the 6th wide receiver off the board or something like that. So, no, you learn a lot. You don't want to overvalue and overhype the early guys and just kind of go with the flow. So, yeah.
So Dan, let me ask you this, because you started playing Dynasty, just like at a mid-stakes level with friends and family back then. When you guys made the jump to playing high-stakes Dynasty, what was the biggest adjustment? Like what were you, I don't want to say what were you not prepared for, or what was the toughest part of the learning curve to sort of, acknowledge and master?
I think, just figuring out with trades, it's hard, like with trades with yourself, like I'll make that decision real quick, but having someone else to balance that out makes a big deal. So that was great, like having that.
Talking with Dan and Brian Jasiak, the 1250 number 12 FFPC Dynasty champs here in the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Brian, I want to congratulate you and Dan on bringing that 1250 number 12 title home. Well, you guys we're polishing that trophy. You actually have some aging players on this team. Raheem Mostert, Julio Jones, Tom Brady, Jared Cook, Greg Olsen. What is sort of your dynasty philosophy towards players on your team who are getting a little bit long in the tooth? And have you ever tried floating, or recently, I should say, tried floating these guys out in trades?
Well, first of all, you need that veteran leadership on the bench, man. You got to have those aging vets to show the young guys, right? Come on. So it's fine.
Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with that. But, no, in all seriousness, right, to us, it's not about, young versus old, right? It's about value and winning now, right? So, and that's something we've done. We've never overvalued the younger guys, right? We get them as they fall, but end of the day, if someone wants to dump like a veteran, like say Larry Fitzgerald, right? If someone wants to give us fifth for a fourth, fifth round, free agency draft pick, we'll take Fitz all day, right? Like that's a good bye week fill-in, it's a good flex fill-in. And end of the day too, we're very active. When I say we, I mean Dan, Trader Danny over here. We're very active on the trade front. So anyone on our team is always for sale and vice versa. So we just find that, we'd try to trade Greg Olsen, right, if we could, but the market, is offering us 6th round free agency picks for him. That's not worth it, right? I'd rather have him retire, right? Old G-Rag, right? Like we're good with him.
Right.
So it's kind of, end of the day, it's value, right? It's value in winning now, and we'll take we'll take the older guys all day long because they'll contribute, right? I think didn't we do like a Drew Brees trade for like a 5th round or 6th round pick, and we had him as a backup to Deshaun Watson all year. It just felt great. Like it's good to have that.
Yeah, Brady has the number 3 in that one.
Yeah. Fine.
Oh my goodness.
It works.
That does work. That's excellent work. That's excellent work, Dave.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, actually, for sure. Speaking of the Saints, Alvin Kamara said he played last year at 75% with a bum leg. Where did this come from?
Roto-World had this update.
So
can you
instead
believe
of having that update, we covered Jimmy Graham instead. We talked about Jimmy Graham.
Because I wanted to ask the true geniuses about Alvin Kamara.
Well, this is news to me, but it sure seemed like he played with the bum leg because he was kind of about 75% good.
He was kind of a bum.
So, Brian, how much are you buying into that? And do you think he's going to have a big bounce back from him this year?
I mean, what a quote, right? I mean, if he played 75% with a bum leg, then he is the consensus, number 2, 3rd pick maybe over, after CMC or and Saquon, but probably over Saquon. I mean, I don't know, if you look at his numbers, right? Like it's a crazy concept because his first 2 years in the league, we all know how much of a stud he was. I think he had double-digit total touchdowns, and he actually had 81 catches in 3 consecutive seasons. So we're talking PPR fantasy football here, right? Like we don't do the standard well, right? So last year he had 1,300 total yards and 81 catches, right? And that's a down year. That's crazy, right? It's because he didn't live up to his top 3 ADP. He's 9th in scoring as a running back last year. So, I mean, I'm all in on Kamara. If he thinks he had a bad year, he's going to be off the charts. I mean, you look at what McCaffrey did. He was historic, right? He scored, I think, 150 more points than any other running back. So it's easy to get caught up in the hype of how good CMC was, and you kind of forget everyone else. And Kamara's in that group as well. So yes, bounce back season all day long. We'll take him.
Yeah. And Brian, you bring that up too. Actually, Kamara, as you pointed out, 80 catches in his first 3 seasons in the league. Only 2 other running backs have done that: the aforementioned Christian McCaffrey and Marshall Faulk, who, oh by the way, is a Hall of Famer. So certainly a lot of fantasy goodness there. And you think about this too. I mean, the Saints, Drew Brees announced he's coming back. I know he peppered Michael Thomas last year. He checked down quite a bit last year as well, and you got to believe that Alvin Kamara is going to be the beneficiary of that. Right now in FFPC best ball leagues, over the last 2 weeks, players are taking Alvin Kamara on average as the 106, as the 5th running back off the board, behind guys like Ezekiel Elliott and Dalvin Cook. So if you do get a mid-first round pick in an FFPC best ball or what have you going forward, not the worst idea in the world to spend that on Alvin Kamara and bet on a bounce back, because I think I'm with you. I think that he's in for a big 2020 season. Let's get back to Dynasty, Dan. I noticed that you guys have moved most of your top rookie draft picks in the 3 Dynasty leagues you have on FFPC. Do you feel like your competitors overvalue those selections and trades, or did you guys move those as part of your belief in, hey, let's try to win now and make hay while the sun shines. And if we got to part with rookie future picks to get veterans that are going to help us win a title, we're going to do it. How do you sort of fall in on that philosophy?
Yeah, hey, I'll tell you, like when back in 2014, early on, I mean, we thought first rounders were gold, and we would look into the draft so much and get so pumped up about it. But I mean, I think as one thing we've learned is, I mean, why not take like players that are veterans that you've seen, you know what they're about, rather than, I mean, a lot of the picks in the first round can be a dart throw any given year. I mean, you never know. So like this particular year, we were just like, hey, we're pretty close. We have some good squads. Like let's go for it. So I mean, some of the examples of trade, like we in all three of our dynasty teams, we dropped first rounders. But I mean, we were getting deals like we got Mahomes in the one we won for Rodgers in a first. I think that's very good. I mean, essentially we got Fournette for a first. He was a game changer this past year, and then. We kind of took a risk on Kareem Hunt for, I think it was a first and a sixth. And, I mean, I'm happy with that from a dynasty perspective. You never know, as long as he is not a knucklehead off the field. But then we're trading kind of veterans or doing some other things to try to get late, like when it comes closer to draft time. And then, the one league that we happen to win, we got McLaurin as a 4.3 in a rookie draft. I mean, I'm not sure what the numbers are entirely, but I mean, I'm pretty sure he was the top rookie wideout, if not like top 3. So good value there. I mean, I just feel like, yeah, you want the tried and like tested players that you know what they're about, rather than a guy like, I mean, even though we're Pats fans, N'Keal Harry, he was the first pick last year, and that didn't help you very much. So.
It's all true.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, here's my issue with Dynasty. I tend to collect all these number 1 picks, and then right before the draft starts, I end up unloading them all for a proven player, and sometimes that proven player has his best years behind him, and then I end up forfeiting guys who are going to be studs. You know, that doesn't always happen with me, but it has happened more than I care to admit, and I won't care to admit any more than that. Dave.
Are you giving up on that strategy?
No, I'm not necessarily. Now I'm actually trying to see it through, and this will be the first year. I'm like, I've gotten some pretty bad offers for the number 1 picks in Carrington, and it's been easy to turn those down. I feel like those are going to start sweetening up here, and it's going to be a matter of willpower if I can turn it down.
All right, I can't wait.
Yeah, don't send me any offers, please. No, don't.
All right, Jen.
Now,
so we haven't talked a lot. Go ahead.
If you're playing Dynasty, you just got to win now, man. Like if you're playing these high-stakes Dynasty leagues, you just want to focus on winning now, because you'll make some great waiver additions, you know, that you didn't plan on. Like Darren Waller is a great example. We scooped him up in 2 of the 3 leagues.
We got Mostert for
nice.
We got Mostert for $1. Yeah,
that helps.
You can't predict this stuff. So rather than bet on these random players, like look at the 2016 draft. That was the Ezekiel Elliott draft, but you had guys like Laquan Treadwell, Doxson, Sterling Shepard, Corey Coleman. These were all ridiculous busts going in the first round early, and that's where Michael Thomas. That was the Michael Thomas example. He went later. So it's really tough. If you're really going to spend that much money to get these top first round picks, you better be in, you know, one of those legendary rookie drafts like 2017 2017 was the McCaffrey draft with
the
Dalvin.
One,
that was Fournette, McCaffrey, Cook, Mixon, Kamara, Kareem Hunt, 2017. That doesn't happen often. So, you know, from our experience, our double-digit years doing this, you better get that real value for this.
All right, well, I'm glad you mentioned all that. We haven't talked about running back A.J. Dillon a lot on this show. I'm going to ask this to Dan. I'm going to be willing to wager that he has a career somewhere in between Isaiah Pete and Christian McCaffrey.
Wow. Yeah.
Now,
that's going out on a limb.
So, Dan, which side of the spectrum do you think he lands on? The more like the piss spectrum?
Isaiah Ped?
Or the CMC spectrum?
Oh, man. Well, I know this guy did a lot at BC, and I appreciate the hometown shout-out there. Obviously, the all-time leading rusher, he put up crazy numbers, and it's interesting that he profiles in the combine pretty much identically to Derrick Henry, which you guys were just talking about being like 1.6 in redrafts or late first round. So that's definitely an interesting comparison. Their numbers are literally identical, other than his height. He's got a few inches on him. Derrick Henry does. So, I mean, I really like the prospect. Obviously, he improved his draft stock with the combine, but he had 845 carries through 3 years. That's a lot. I mean, so a little worried about that side and just being a PPR player, only 21 catches. So it's like, I don't know. The only worry is he turns into Andre Williams, which I'll be honest, in the Dynasty League that my brother was talking about, I wagered the future for Andre Williams, and that didn't work out so well for me.
No, it did not. I think we learned then too, right? Like, we're a PPR focused team. Like, we only get guys with upside in that front. So, you know, as happy you are, you know, AJ Dillon's a Boston College player, and we're from here. End of the day, though, we're just because we're Boston guys doesn't mean we're huge fans of that team. Dan actually went to University of Tennessee, so maybe that's why we're big Kamara guys. But
Kamara,
would stay away. Yeah, I would stay away from Dillon just because of it's. In my opinion, you know, I know Dan gave some Henry measurables, but still, give me the PPR numbers all day long, and that upside instead.
We're talking with Dan and Brian Jasiak here tonight on the HSFF Hour, the 1250 number 12 Dynasty League champs. And let's get into some more rookie analysis here. Dan, Jerry Jeudy is widely considered, it's not a consensus, obviously, but he's widely considered the top wideout in the 2020 NFL Draft. How close do you think he's going to come to living up to that once he gets to the league? And we're going to talk with Brian and N'Keal Harry in a little bit, but that was a guy who was obviously a top wide receiver draft in rookie drafts last year, didn't really live up to it. How do you see Jeudy's career playing out here, Dan?
Well, hey, I mean, big shoes to fill. You got Julio, you got Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley. So is he the next guy? I mean, I certainly think he could be. I think the tough thing with wideouts this year, I feel like, is I mean, before the draft, we're not sure where they're going to land, obviously. So I think opportunity plays a big role in this. But I love his teammate, too. Henry Ruggs, I mean, he lit up the combine. 4.27 40, that was the best for wideouts. And then he was off the charts with just athleticism and broad jump and vertical. And then, again, as you guys were talking about earlier, love CeeDee Lamb. He might be the number one wideout in my mind. But that's not taking anything away from Jeudy. I enjoyed watching him all year, and he actually had a better sophomore season than last year. So, if you know what I mean? Like, I think and then T. Higgins, another guy that's in the conversation for me. But I think a lot of it just depends on landing spot and opportunity and who their quarterback is. But I do think Judy's going to have a good career.
I do too. I'm with you on that. I think he's going to be the 101 in a lot of fantasy drafts this year too, regardless of where the top three running backs go. He's just such a phenomenal talent. Maybe he busts, but I think his bust rate is probably as low as I've seen for a receiver. I think Mel Kiper Jr. said that, forgive me if I'm misquoting him, but I thought he said he's in the same class of Julio Jones and A.J. Green as far as how he rated these guys when they were coming out. So Jeudy looks like a fairly safe pick. Now, Dave, conversely, a receiver who ended up not being a safe pick in last year's draft is one we should ask Dan and Brian about here.
N'Keal Harry went number 101 in a bunch of drafts in 2019. Players who took Josh Jacobs, Deebo Samuel, A.J. Brown, blah, 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 blah.
The list goes on, yeah.
Yeah, they're a lot happier. But, I mean, Harry, he was highly regarded coming out. I know the Patriots have a bad history with wide receivers.
Started off slow with the injury.
Yeah, Brian, what do you think? Do you think Harry might, he's probably getting pretty cheap on the trade blocks. What do you guys think? Is he in for a breakout, or should they try and, maybe get a second round or try and deal him off before the season starts?
Yeah. You guys have no idea how good of a question this is, because this is something that Dan and I argued about all last season. Right? That's
and the dogs apparently are not a fan.
That's security right there. Oh, actually, he's on my team then. Yeah, because I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of N'Keal. It pains me to say that because I'm a huge Pats fan. And N'Keal, I know you're listening right now, so I'm sorry, buddy, but historically the Pats just don't draft well at that position in rounds 1 through 4. Like, if you look at historically in the last few years, you got Malcolm Mitchell, Aaron Dobson, Chad Jackson, like the list goes on. You have to go back to 96 with Terry Glenn. And Julian Edelman does not count as a 7th rounder, and that was a quarterback play, let's be honest, right? So it's with N'Keal, I don't know, man. it's not about skill. He's a talented kid, but just the way the Pats play, the way they spread the ball around, uncertainty at the quarterback position, his injury history, there's a lot against him, right? I hope he's great. I hope he pans out, but I'm not feeling it as much right now. Dan can probably counter right now, but the problem is in Dynasty, he's a sell low, right? Like, if I was in a position that I had him, I would not be getting rid of him for a second round pick. You just got to hold on to him for a couple of years, right? Like, he could be fine, he could be great, but he hasn't shown enough other than that ridiculous touchdown that got called back, right? Remember that one in the playoffs?
But you can't sell them right now.
No,
That's
you can't.
It's like having stocks before this whole thing happened.
Yeah,
you can't sell off right now, or you just get nothing for your initial investment. And I mean, I'll be honest, I'd rather have DK Metcalf. There's other guys. Deebo Samuel looks pretty good right now, and there's other guys. I guess it was probably just the shiny new object thing about getting a first round wideout and being excited about it. But I mean, you barely saw the field, so
the Patriots rarely get those skill positions in the first round, right? We did it with Michelle last year, but or the year before, but it doesn't happen often. So yeah, we're excited as a fan base, but not feeling it right now. So what do you guys think?
I got it. No, I have him, Dave. I don't know how many dynasty
Who's
teams.
the quarterback going to be again?
Maybe Andy Dalton.
Great
we don't
question.
know. I mean,
do we have another half hour?
I mean, finally they're going to get a good-looking guy at quarterback.
Oh, can you imagine the look
Dude,
scale
they can't
from going
have
from Tom Brady to
coronavirus
Andy
cancel
Dalton?
all our sports and Brady at the same time. Like, we can't have that in the same week. I can't take it.
That'd be rough. No kidding.
Let's get into. I got a couple of emails here that I want to read from some listeners. I'm going to pitch this first one to you, Brian. This is from who is this from? This is from Ray in San Francisco. He says, "How do you guys view Devin Singletary in terms of dynasty value? Is he being a little overvalued right now, or are you guys buying in on him?" Thank you for the email, Ray in San Francisco. Singletary obviously started off slow last year, but really took that Buffalo job and ran with it, pun intended. And it sounds like Frank Gore is not going to be brought back. So it's Devin Singletary's backfield there. How do you guys feel about him, Brian? Is this a guy that you need to be buying in on for as far as dynasty goes?
I'm gonna have to give Dan a piece of this question because his wife is actually a Buffalo Bills fan, so he's gonna talk about. I'm objective. We're both objective people, right? I'm a huge Singletary fan. I think he's explosive. He passes the eye test. I love what I see from him. He's a stud, man. He's a stud. I think I think he's a PPR guy. I think he's what you want to see. His last game, I think they featured him really well in the playoffs against Houston, which was one of their more ridiculous games of the playoffs. But I think he had 6 or 7 grabs, a couple of explosive plays. I think he peaked towards the end of the year and he looks great. Right, Dan? Like, what do you think about him?
Yeah, that was more optimistic than I expected you to be. But I thought Singletary was a my guy type thing. But you hit all the points. I mean, I like him, and obviously Frank Gore ate into his workload last year, and he's going to have a greater chance to showcase himself this year. And obviously, the Bills are going to add some pieces. Like Josh Allen makes the team a little more exciting, and I mean, there's more optimism in Buffalo than there has been in a long time. So
he's a piece I would go not borderline all in for. If you can get him to someone who's not really excited about him, you can trade for him now. He's a guy that I think is going to absolutely take off. His ADP is just going to skyrocket in the next couple of years.
I own Singletary in a couple leagues. I fielded some offers for him in the off season. Nothing that I'm willing to go on because I think people are still they're I don't know, maybe I'm overvaluing him. I just feel like they're sending me a floor value rather than, somewhere between a floor and a ceiling value. And I would part with them in the right scenario. I just don't feel like I've gotten it so far as dynasty goes. One other email here, Dan, I'm going to throw this to you here as this email comes from Charlie in Durham, North Carolina. What's up, brothers? Jasiak, can you give me a read on Brady right now? Oh, this is poignant here. Can you give me a read on Brady right now? Where does he end up, and how does he affect the skill guys on that team? Way to go on your dynasty win. Thank you for the email, Charlie in Durham, North Carolina. All right, Dan, what's the Brady prediction here from you?
Oh man, I mean, you're asking the right guy. Well, I just got a tip recently. So Spin Zone, coronavirus may delay the start of free agency, giving the Pats more time to negotiate with Tom and bringing him back home to us. So there's your prediction right there.
I
like
what's funny
it.
about that situation too is that what I'm hearing is he's demanding like general manager role, right? He wants to make player decisions. He wants to call the plays, and I don't blame him. At this stage in his career, with his skill set and his knowledge of the game, he wants to go into a situation right away where he can, obviously insert himself as the alpha. So is he going to get that, right? So I actually like that he's doing that, because I think that ultimately brings him right back into New England, because he's not going to get a better deal than what he has here. So that's my optimism, but I actually do think that's pretty reasonable as well, because I think he's asking for too much, and I think he'll find himself back with the Pats.
It sounds like he's trying to play real life Madden, as my buddy just said to me.
Yeah, no, real life Madden it's not going to work. And, if he comes back to New England, Coach Belichick is still going to be calling the shots there, too. So sometimes the grass isn't always greener, and maybe Brady will find that. Listen, I have no stake. I have no dog in the fight. I want to see Brady in a Patriots uniform again. Keep going. Just continue that legacy.
At this point?
Oh, Tampa is trying to get him. And I think about Brady in a Tampa jersey. It's like it's sullying everything about what winning stands for.
No, we need Jameis there. We can't lose that comedy.
Brady in a color rush Thursday night game, Bucks Jaguars. No thanks.
Oh, that's so terrible. The 616 caller has been very patient. Go ahead. You're on the air with David Balke and Dan and Brian Jasiak. Who are we talking to? And they dropped off. So I love it when they hang out for that long, and then we put them on, and then they drop off. That's okay. We've
There's a lot of pressure to talk on these shows.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, clearly.
It's really tough.
Yeah.
Speaking of tough, we're going to put the tough questions to Dan and Brian here, Dave, as we want them to spill their guts, as it were, as far as some sleeper and busts here, right?
That's right. If you've been listening at all, you know that I don't know jack crap about the rookies this year so far, so I'm just looking for your advice. Okay, I know a little bit, Bulk. You don't be too mad.
That's what I'm saying. I know you do.
I'm looking for a bust and a sleeper. Let's start with Brian, and then Dan. Please help us out.
So I'm sort of, I hate to say it, I hate to agree with you too. I'm in a similar spot as you, right? It's a difficult pre-draft question. This is kind of how we've always been successful, though. You need to see where people land and what their path to snaps are, right? Atlanta, they might part with Devontae Freeman. If they get a running back, man, that's a big pick right there. Houston with Lamar Miller at running back, that's uncertain. Miami, if they get a running back. Dallas, where does Amari Cooper go? Wide receiver right there. You guys are talking about Green Bay tight end. If they get a guy like Thaddeus Moss, that could be a sleeper pick. You never know. But pre-draft, you got to just go with the eye test from watching college games. I'm bummed Travis Etienne from Clemson staying. He would have been top of my list on a sleeper. I know Dan will probably talk about J.K. Dobbins in a second. Clyde Edwards from LSU. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, no. CeeDee Lamb might be the best player in the draft. I would go all in on him right now. Justin Jefferson from LSU, big time player. But it's hard to call a bust right now when you don't really know what their situation is. So, what do you think, Dan?
No, Dobbins is my guy. I thought he was. I'm actually surprised that a lot of people are putting him further down the list. I'm seeing him as the 5th ranked running back, and that seems crazy. He seems like a second or third rounder at this point. But I thought, just eye test alone and his production last year, just insane. I thought something special about him, and I think depending on where he lands up, he's PPR gold, and I think he's a big time sleeper. Another guy like Denzel Mims from Baylor, he's electric speed. He showed out at the combine, and then just a little deeper. I really do like Fromm from Georgia. I think because he could probably end up being a 3rd or 4th rounder, depending on how the QB how that slides out, But
yeah. There's a lot of good names to keep in mind there for certain, and I'm with you on Fromm too. I actually like him quite a bit. And somebody is going to get a steal because he won't go in the first round. I think he will go on day 2. I don't think he slips to day 3, and somebody's going to get a pretty good value on him. I know we tried to go to the 616 before. I want to give it one more shot. 616, you're on the air with Dave Balke and Dan and Brian Jasiak.
Fellas.
What's up, man?
This is Jimmy.
What, Jimmy, how's it going? You have a question tonight?
what is the max that you guys would do a dynasty with? 10,000?
This is a good question for Dave. The highest we've ever done is 5,000. I don't know if we'd ever scare up enough talent for a 10,000 draft, Dave. Do we?
Well, Dave doesn't have the balls to fucking do a 10,000.
Get him.
I don't know if we could do a 10. Like, we could launch it, but I don't think we'd fill it. No, I mean like if we just launched it on the site and we like publicized it.
I mean, we could have a $10,000 dynasty league if everyone pays 2 years worth of entry fees up front. So that's $20,000 a person,
and then we do
plus
it.
a $5,000 deposit. So
right.
If we can scare up $300,000 for $120,000 in entry fees, I'd be happy to host it.
Jimmy, that's all it takes is $300,000.
I know what it takes to sell an orphan team, and let me tell you, a $2,500 orphan team is a pain in the ass. And $10,000, multiply that, not times 4. It's an exponential thing. It's like times 400.
Right.
So send me the $25,000 and we'll reach out as the first one.
We have twins on the phone right now. They would easily put up one team, easily.
Okay. All right.
So
here's what I'm going to suggest. And I'll put this out right now. We're already taking wait lists for Dynasty startup starting at $750. But if you know anybody who's interested, we will send dynasty@myffpc.com. Let us know you're interested in a 10K league. And once we get 12 owners together,
if we got 5 or 6, I would actually.
You'd list it?
No, at that point I would talk to Alex about it.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you go.
I think you guys have a market
basically,
for this. I used to
would
work.
these two guys do it?
I spent 3 years at DraftKings, and I spent a lot of time with a lot of our high stakes players, and there's a huge market for this. We used to host like Fantasy Football World Championships, talk to all those guys, former poker players. They didn't bat an eye at $5,600 entry, single game, single weekend matchups. So it's out there. You put it out there, people will come.
Maybe it won't be that. It wouldn't be as much as I said. Hey,
all right.
You know what? Seriously, shoot an email. If we get even 4 or 5 people, we might make it happen.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And because you guys are 2, we're already halfway to 4.
Jimmy, I want to thank you for the phone call.
My question is,
you might.
Well, hang on.
Go ahead.
Hang on, though. My question is to the twin
Go
boys here. I'm sure Matt Ryan is in the background. If you had a 10G wager here, what would be your first pick? No doubt.
In a Dynasty league?
Perfect.
Oh, hell yeah. Dynasty. Go ahead.
Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, I was going to say, not even a question.
I didn't hesitate. What would you pick?
Yeah. No.
Jerry Jeudy?
Yeah. Sure.
All right. Good enough, Jimmy.
Jimmy,
we certainly appreciate the phone call on that. As far as that goes, I think it is CMC. I don't think it. I think that's where it starts, and especially when you're talking about a 10K league. Dan and Brian, you guys have been incredibly gracious with your time. I know we kept you on longer than we thought tonight, so thanks so much for hanging out. Congratulations on the 12-50-12. Good luck in all of your FFPC Dynasty and regular FFPC leagues as the season goes on as well. We certainly enjoyed it tonight. You gave me some things to think about with my Dynasty chops, so I'll certainly be applying those as well. And we'll talk again real soon. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, fellas. Enjoyed
all right,
it.
Thanks, guys.
Anytime.
Appreciate it.
Dan and Brian Jasiak, the 1250 number 12 FFPC Dynasty champs. Of course, you follow Brian on Twitter at BJasiak11. You follow Dan on Twitter at FootballPPR. Good stuff from those guys. Very knowledgeable, Dave.
Yeah, they totally knew their stuff.
I got to stop. I'm going to retire this show, and I'm not going to.
All right, cool.
No. Here's the thing. Oh. I'm going to get a different host because I keep talking to these great high stakes players every single week. And whether it's redraft or dynasty, everybody has their own approach to it. And as it happens, a lot of the guests we have on the show are very successful at it. And they all have their own ways of doing it. And I try to apply what I know, but it's like a hodgepodge. And you can't do a hodgepodge. You can't try to do a little bit of everything. You got to kind of pick one strategy and go with it. And I feel like that's one of the things that's hamstrung me over the years. And now I have a lot to think about after the Jasiaks join the show tonight because oftentimes you don't hear a whole lot of people talking about trading number one picks for talented veterans. That's usually something that you don't want to do in Dynasty. And these guys have been doing it for 6 years, and they've had a lot of success doing it. So it's something to keep in mind for sure. So I want to thank those gentlemen for coming on. We've been taking a look at how the certain positions have finished in 2019. Tonight, as we close out the show, we've got about 6 minutes or so, and I want to talk a little bit about how the receivers finished last year. Now, Dave, I have given you a list of the top 100 receivers in 2019. We're obviously not going to be talking about 100 receivers here tonight. I do want to single out a few receivers and talk about where they're going in FFPC best balls right now. Number one on this list is not number one, but number one on my list, Chris Godwin, who finished as the number 2 fantasy receiver behind wunderkind Michael Thomas. He finished 90 fantasy points behind Michael Thomas, to give you an idea of the gap between 1 and 2 last year.
So dominant.
But Godwin was number 2, and if you look at where he's going right now in best ball drafts, you can get him at the 209. That strikes me as a big-time value.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. I mean, he doesn't have a quarterback at all, so you're just drafting the wide receiver only.
But, I mean...
You're drafting the catcher.
Okay. That's fine. You're
pitcher.
You're right. Now,
that's a reference to baseball, the sport that's no longer in existence.
Okay, thank you. Tampa has basically made it known that Jameis Winston will come back and be their quarterback if literally every other alternative fails. All right? So now if that is the case, we know what Godwin can do with Winston. But wouldn't you think that anything else would be an improvement, or would it be
anything else would be an improvement over whatever gets this guy to be number 2 as a wide receiver? No, I don't think that.
Okay, so it was a leading question. That's what I was trying to get to. Because if they do get Rivers or Brady or who else, it may be a better NFL decision. May not be great for fantasy value, though, for Godwin.
True.
Okay. So 209, you're still on board with Godwin. I get it. All right, moving on. Julian Edelman, can you believe he finished as the number 5 receiver last year? As terrible as that New England offense was, especially down the stretch, the Patriots are really faded. Julian Edelman, number 5 receiver, and nobody's really giving him respect as far as FFPC best ball.
I have no idea where he's going to, can I guess?
Go ahead.
403.
Much lower.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Where, 5'10"?
7'10".
Shut up, really?
7'10" is his average right now. He
always go in the 4th round all the time, and everybody would get pissed when he got drafted. They'd be like, I
shouldn't have waited. I should have drafted him in the 3rd. Yeah.
I was going to take him.
Everybody
would get mad.
Wide receiver 31 right now, Dave. Here's just like a few of the guys that are going ahead of him. Michael Gallup, Tyler Boyd, Terry McLaurin, DJ Chark.
It really shows how deep wide receiver really is. It's amazing. Those are all good. Those are decent picks, too.
Would you jump on Julian Edelman in the 5th round?
Well, I mean, given the players you just listed, probably not. But
okay.
I mean, wow, that's
you get him at the end of the 7th.
Clearly, I'm not drafting right now, but Edelman's a really nice pick in that range.
All right, let's talk about our mascot who's in the chat room right now, Packer. His favorite wide receiver 1, who is not a wide receiver 1 according to him, was Kenny Golladay, who finished as the wide receiver 7 last year in FFPC scoring, Dave. He's going at the wide receiver 8 this year at the 304. Matthew Stafford had maybe his best statistical year as a pro, so obviously Kenny Golladay was a big beneficiary of that. He's going ahead of DJ Moore, Amari Cooper, and Odell Beckham right now. I think you would rather have, well, no, I'm not, I won't even say it. Would you rather have Golladay over all 3 of those receivers, Moore, Cooper, Beckham?
I would rather have Golladay over Cooper and Beckham. Moore I'm not sure about, but he doesn't, his quarterback situation.
Yeah, exactly.
But Moore, I love his talent, and I feel like he's going to make another leap forward this year. I probably would take Moore over Golladay.
Okay, all right. I mean, they're going essentially back-to-back.
Yeah.
So I have no quarrel with you there. In fact, I would probably take Golladay over Moore, but once I know who Moore's quarterback is, and if it's not like Kyle Allen or somebody like that, then I'd probably go with Moore. But right now I'm probably taking Golladay. It's a horse apiece. Moving on. Here's an interesting guy, polarizing guy. He finished last year as wide receiver 13, Dave, and that is the former first-round pick Devontae Parker, who's being drafted at wide receiver 22 at the 603. Now, this is interesting. We talked about this during the season last year. Devontae Parker's big-time stats came on when Preston Williams went down. Do you think that the ding of FFPC drafters not drafting last year's 13th receiver until wide receiver 22 in the 6th round, is that enough of a ding, or do you think Parker should be going further in drafts given what Preston Williams should do now that he's healthy this year?
Further down, you're saying?
Should Devontae Parker be drafted further down? He is not being dinged enough.
No, I don't think so. I mean, Parker, even though I've never been a big fan of his, he had a really solid year, and he actually does present even upside from how he finished last year. So he could. Is it implausible that Devontae Parker finishes as a WR1 this year? No,
it is
totally
not
possible.
implausible. Yeah,
totally possible. I mean, all you have to do is be one of the top 12 out of 32 teams and be the number one receiver on that team. Totally possible. So I think that he might be even a little undervalued at 22.
Oh, okay. He's actually going in a glut here of Stephon Diggs, Robert Woods, Adam Thielen, Tyler Lockett, Deebo Samuel, and DJ Chark, all going around that early 6th round range in FFPC best balls right now. All right, so let's move on to John Brown, Dave, who finished as wide receiver 15 last year, catching balls from Josh Allen in Buffalo. John Brown going as wide receiver 37. You can get him in the 9th round right now. I'm not going to do the num thing, but that is a really good value in the 9th round for John Brown.
You know, I don't know what his stats look like as of right now, but to me it seemed like his first 6 to 7 weeks were solid, and then he trailed off quite a bit and just didn't really do a whole lot in the second half of the year. Also, I'm guessing he was pretty streaky. I might be wrong on both of those counts. That's just my opinion. So I'm not feeling the num on my end.
All right, that's funny. I totally agree with you on both those things. I think you're accurate. I think he was streaky, and I think he came on strong. However, in the 9th round, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of baked in. Guys that are going behind. Well, CeeDee Lamb could actually, I mean, I'd probably have rather the upside with CeeDee Lamb. But then you're talking about Mike Williams from the Chargers, Will effing Fuller, Darius Slayton, Robbie Anderson, a bunch of unknowns. I can get on board with John Brown in the early 9th round, even if it means a little bit of streakiness there, if I am relying on a receiver there. All right, we are up against it. Let's do one last receiver I want to talk about here. Darius Slayton, Dave. He finished as wide receiver 37 last year, which is a little misleading because he obviously didn't come on until the Giants were really hit hard with injuries. He is going as wide receiver 41 at the 11:03 right now. Again, I just mentioned this, right behind Will Fuller. He's right ahead of Robbie Anderson and Mecole Hardman. Obviously, the Giants could do something in the draft. It seems like the Giants are really doing a good job of building a good foundation of coaching around him. They got a really good quarterbacks coach. They get the guy from New England to be the head coach and judge to take over there. So I think Daniel Jones obviously takes a step forward. And, you know, quite frankly, I think Darius Slayton takes a step forward as well. The only thing that would really hold him back is if, you know, the Giants went out and signed somebody, because to me, he passed Golden Tate last year. And Sterling Shepard is just sort of he's a guy. Where Slayton, there's some untapped upside.
Yeah, you know, Slayton does have some upside. I did not acquire him at all last year. I totally blew it.
I did too.
And but I'll take a peek at him this year. I'll check him out.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking. What did I just say? 11th round. I mean, wide receiver 41. So people are drafting him as, you know, middle of the pack wide receiver 4 for their teams. I think that's awesome. That's really, really good. So I'd definitely be on board there. And I think the thing to take away as we look at how the receivers finished last year in comparison to how they're being drafted this year, you hit the nail on the head. Not only is this a deep wide receiver rookie class, it is a deep wide receiver fantasy class from a redraft standpoint too. So, and especially now again, this best ball format probably skews the drafting a little bit, where running backs do get pushed up and receivers do get pushed a little bit further down once we get more classic ADP. I think that should even out a little bit, but maybe not. I mean, maybe this is the year to grab a couple of stud running backs early and wait on wide receiver, because you can the depth is so good. Maybe this is the fantasy throwback year. 2020 is the new 2004, Dave.
Yeah, baby.
And we're having a return of LaDainian Tomlinson and Sean Alexander and Clinton Portis and all the great goodness that we enjoyed back in the day.
Yeah, that was a fun time back then.
It was a fun time. It's more fun now, I think. It's more challenging. I mean, back then it's just like
a lot of things in life are more challenging than back then. But yeah,
which I like. Listen, I
love the regulatory environment of fantasy. It's so much fun.
Okay,
the
that
coronavirus is kind of a blast.
Well,
it's interesting.
We don't. On that note, we have roughly.
Nothing really to joke about the coronavirus nor the regulatory environment.
Right.
So.
No, and yeah, I mean it's.
But fantasy is a lot better. I think with the advent of the internet and it just is so much better the way you can actually play this way.
I'd like to think.
Try and build it up again.
I'd like to think the FFPC and we'll let the customer speak on this, and I think they have over the years. And just me being an observer of it, I really think that we've gotten better at giving, by and large, the FFPC player more of what they want, and we continue to get better at that. We're not perfect, and we never will be, but we always try to strive to be as best as we can, and hopefully you can enjoy that and the fact that we try to do that day in and day out. That's going to do it for our show, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Dan and Brian Jasiak for hanging out with us tonight. Of course, the 1250 number 12 FFPC Dynasty champs. Again, follow Brian on Twitter at BJCAC11. You follow Dan on Twitter at FootballPPR. I want to thank Dave Gerzak, the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you for hanging out and listening this week. We always appreciate that. Next week, we will be back on Friday, 10/9 Central, with another Dynasty champion. That's right, the 1250 number 13 Dynasty champ, Scott Pollock, will be on the show next Friday. We're going to pick his brain, talk rookie drafts, talk a lot more as we delve deep into the Dynasty landscape here on the HSFFO. Remember to get in on that FFPC main event early bird. Try Best Ball Slam. Don't forget to pick up a Dynasty Orphan or start a new one. Plenty of Dynasty startups launching this weekend as well. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Be safe out there, and your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
We're on the cement floor, even more so if we on tour. Me and E explore the country, wondering about the evening before. Trying to explain where the time went, while other rappers find a studio to grind in.
The other thing to keep in mind, I talked about trading those Dynasty first-rounders, and I don't want, it's going to be one of those things where if I use those first-round picks, I think I might inevitably be kind of like, I can't believe I held on to these picks for this long to take these players. You know what I mean? Like, the picks always look better than the players. And let's say, so I have 3 first-round picks in Carrington, right? And let's say I end up with Jalen Rieger, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Cam Akers or something. I'll be like, really? That's what I use those first-round picks on? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm a total self-loathing Dynasty player. I can't make myself happy.
I don't know, man. You need some counseling or something.
Definitely. Fantasy counseling. Somebody hit me up. I need it. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we'll talk to you again next week.